Do you want to know the most underrated way to actually win your fantasy football league? It's pretty simple, trading, but more importantly, selling high on the players who are currently producing way more than they're likely going to the rest of the year. So in this video, we're going to talk about 7 players who could potentially ruin your fantasy team if you don't trade them away right now for even better options. And I want to start by talking about Kyren Williams, who in many fantasy leagues was a 3rd round, maybe even a late 2nd round pick this year. We were not on him for a couple of reasons. One of the big reasons we weren't on Kyren Williams is for the 2nd straight year, the Rams went out in the draft and spent decent draft capital on a backup running back. 2 years ago, it was Blake Corum coming off of a Michigan championship team in college where Blake Corum was the engine of that offense for 2 years. This past year was Jarquez Hunter, who's a little bit more of a different back compared to Kyren Williams. Blake Corum is very similar to Kyren. Jarquez Hunter is more so this explosive player compared to those other 2 backs who can create explosives, can be used out of the backfield as well, something Kyren really hasn't been doing much of the last 2 years. And the team added Davante Adams, who in his career has been a red zone monster, earning red zone targets like crazy, which is only going to take away more from Kyren, who relied heavily on his red zone touches last year. So those were some of the red flags, right? Like I didn't like, if we looked at last year, Kyren basically relied on just overall volume. 88% of the snaps is like unheard of these days, led the NFL. You scroll over to what he was doing from a red zone touches, led the NFL amongst running backs with 77 red zone touches. Again, when you bring Davante Adams in, when you just naturally regression-wise aren't going to see 90% of the snaps when another running back is added to your backfield, things are a little bit concerning when I see you as a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Now, so far we saw the similar type of guy in week 1. He had 18 carries. The only other running backs on the team, Blake Corum, had 1, and that was it. But he was inefficient yet again, just like he was last year for most of the year, averaging just 4 yards per carry, 37th in the NFL, just 3.7 yards per carry. Okay, and then week 2 comes and we see some similar usage, as you can see right here from this backfield. You can see Kyren, 17 carries, but Blake Corum sees a little bit more. He sees 5 carries late in the game in the fourth quarter when the game was not a blowout by any means. This was still an important drive for the Rams. And Corum goes out there and he has 5 carries for 44 yards, averages 9 yards per carry, while Kyren Williams once again remained inefficient, averaging less than 4 yards per carry, just 3.9 yards in this game. But here's the important part. Okay, you could still say that Kyren is easily seeing all the touches, and that's very true. Although he's not doing much with those touches right now, as he's also losing red zone volume because Davante Adams saw like 5 or 6 red zone targets in week 2. But check this out. If we look at the week 1 usage from this backfield according to Fantasy Life, you can see Kyren played 75% of the snaps. He had 76% of the rush attempts, right? You can keep scrolling over, but here's the interesting part. He played 100% of the 2-minute offense snaps, and he saw the majority of the touches inside the 5-yard line. Okay, let's fast forward to week 2, where Blake Corum comes on, and he's seeing 100% of the touches inside the 5-yard line, which is a new development for this backfield, and Blake Corum is seeing overall more usage in the 4th quarter when those are key important touches for the offense. Again, it's not Blake Corum is now the RB1 here, it's Kyren seeing enough usage away. The fact that he went to seeing 69% of the snaps, still not terrible, but 20% less more than he was seeing last year, now with less red zone usage and the same inefficiency on a per touch basis, this starts to get pretty concerning for Kyren Williams. The good news is for you, he's seen 18 and 17 carries. You could paint a picture where this Rams offense with Davante Adams and Stafford now healthy, it seems, with this back injury, you could say, oh, this is the lead running back in a good offense. Try and trade him away. Because there are a lot of signals that I'm concerned about. Again, finally lost red zone work according to Ryan Heath right here. He even split carries evenly with Blake Corum inside the 20-yard line, 3 for 3 this past week, with Corum getting the touchdown as well over Kyren Williams. Okay, that's concerning. You then look at what Sean McVay said after the game. I think that what we're looking for is something around a 65-35 split for those guys. For most backfields, this is fine, but a 65% snap split moving forward for Kyren Williams would be a 25% drop in snaps that he saw last year when he needed every single one of those snaps to be fantasy relevant because he wasn't efficient. And then, like I've been hinting at, Davante Adams is also here, and he was just getting force-fed the ball in week 2. He saw 39% of the team's targets, right? And he was also seeing a ton of red zone targets, 5 red zone targets in this game. So far through 2 weeks right now, Puka Nacua and Davante Adams are making up 66% of the Rams' targets. That's taking away from the backfield targets, especially in the red zone. So the surface level stats and volume still look pretty solid, but under the hood, things are starting to become slightly concerning, especially since he lost that red zone touchdown last week to Blake Corum. I'm a little bit concerned for Kyren Williams. If we redrafted today, he wouldn't be a late 2nd round pick. I probably wouldn't take him until the 4th round at best. So what you should do, in my opinion, is try and trade him while you still can. In terms of Kyren Williams for Tetairoa McMillan, I prefer Tetairoa McMillan. Ashton Genty's had a slow start. I still prefer Ashton Genty at this point, right? We keep scrolling. Yes, I would love to buy low on Brian Thomas like we talked about in Thursday's video and trade away Kyren Williams to get Brian Thomas. These types of deals are currently real deals that are happening right now. That was a trade calculator database, not affiliated at all. Just think it's a good tool. Those deals have been happening within the past 24 hours. I personally, if you can sell high on him or for a decent price, would get rid of Kyren Williams. And I would do the same with Deebo Samuel right now, who is he's like the perfect sell high candidate because of so many reasons we're about to get into. Like last year, let's just talk about it, right? So far this year, it's been good. We're going to get into that. Last year, everybody thought this guy was absolutely cooked. He had his worst fantasy finish by far, just 10 fantasy points per game, the wide receiver 46, though he did deal with injuries and pneumonia and those types of things in the previous years. He only had 51 catches, right? That was a low for his career. 670 yards was by far a low in the seasons where he played at least this amount of games, 15 games last year. So everybody was saying he's cooked. The 49ers basically gave him away to the Washington Commanders in that deal, but here's the thing. Right now, it looks like Deebo Samuel is back. In week 1, 7 catches, 77 yards, 22.5 points. In week 2, on a short week, mind you, which for older veteran players like Deebo is going to be difficult, still catches 7 balls, gets bailed out by the touchdown, 17.4 fantasy points in that game. So you're looking at Deebo Samuel to start the season right now, and he's a top 12 wide receiver 1 in fantasy football. He looks like a great pick that you probably took in, I don't know, the 6th, 7th, maybe 8th round of your fantasy drafts, and you're feeling really good, and you should. On paper, it looks like Deebo is back, but I think this is just a perfect selling window, and here's why. I mean, first off, his average depth of target has been absolutely atrocious. He's relying on having 7 receptions per game, and I think at the end of the season, if we look up, I'm pretty sure Deebo Samuel is not going to have 120 to 130 catches, right? He's not going to keep having 7 receptions per game. He's only averaging 4.7 average depth of target yards downfield. That's atrocious. That's barely better than most running backs in the NFL. Basically, he's running on average 4 yards down the field, and that's where he's getting his target. That's not going to lead to explosive plays. That's probably not going to lead to a lot of yardage most weeks, even if you are catching 5 to 7 balls, just like last week where he only had 44 yards. The second part of this is that Terry McLaurin hasn't done anything the first 2 weeks, and I think there's a reason for this. He sat out of all of training camp, and just like we've seen in past years, CeeDee Lamb's gotten off to slow starts. You've seen Brandon Ayuk just last year alone got off to slow starts as well. When you do these holdouts and you're not with the team for a month or 2 months in OTAs as well, when you're doing your holdout, he only basically had like a half a week to a week of practice with the team. I think he's starting to ramp up. So once Terry McLaurin starts producing, that directly takes away from the target share and production of Deebo Samuel. Okay, so there's a couple of reasons, right? There's also the fact right now that, Jayden Daniels isn't healthy. There's a chance that Jayden Daniels, who underwent an MRI following the loss to the Packers, was diagnosed with a sprained knee. Now, that's very good. It was a sprained knee. Who knows what this means really? But he's doubtful to be playing, or maybe leaning towards doubtful to be playing in week 3 by the time that you're watching this. Maybe you know. They said he wouldn't practice until at least Friday, so we'll see if that ends up happening. But he might even miss week 3 and be banged up for a couple of weeks after that. He's a quarterback who relies on his mobility. Who knows how much this affects him, which will affect the whole offense. Now, I'm not as concerned about that for Jayden Daniels. It doesn't seem like a major injury as I am in terms of the role of Deebo Samuel. Again, he's not going to catch 7 balls a week. And even when he does, on average, he's only 5 yards downfield. He needs touchdowns to pay off. People look at Deebo Samuel as a top 12 wide receiver right now, and he surely has done that. But for the rest of the season, in my top 150 rest of season rankings that you can get right now at jointheblueprint.com in the Fantasy Blueprint, he's nowhere near the top 12. It's not even close. George Pickens, I'd rather have. Travis Etienne, I'd rather have. DJ Moore is close. Jameson Williams, easily rather have. Cortland Sutton, easily. I can keep going here. Marvin Harrison, easily rather have all these other guys. AJ Brown, no doubt about it, right? Then Deebo Samuel, he's the perfect sell high candidate right now. Now, if you want to see where Terry McLaurin that we talked about, maybe even Deebo Samuel rank in my top 50 overall rankings for week 3, you can check it out totally free at fantasyrankingsfree.com. It's also linked down below right now, and I'll send you that over, the top 50 overall rankings for week 3. This will be the page it takes you to. You just enter your email simply right here, and then I'll send them to you. Make sure to check your spam and promotional folders. Now, if you want my top 150 rankings for this week, and you also want the rest of season rankings, which for videos like this, when we're talking about trading away, my top 150 rest of season rankings updated every week. That would be as if you drafted that week. That's how I'd have the players ranked. Well, that's just one of the tools that you get in the Fantasy Blueprint. You get a ton of tools every single day, every week, access to Ask Me Questions one-on-one as well. You could join 10,000 other people currently using the same tools that I use in all my leagues at jointheblueprint.com or with the link in the description below. All right, the next man we got to talk about is Quinshon Judkins. Now, I'm not going to necessarily say sell him, right? You could hold him. If you get a right price, I would sell him because I think there's a lot of just concerns for Quinshon Judkins right now. Of course, he ended up coming back in week 2. They said he was only going to play 10 to 15 snaps, and then he sees just 10 carries alone, and he looked pretty good on these carries. Like if you pull up the box score here, 10 carries, 61 yards, 6.1 yards per attempt. Now, I will say he had a 30-plus yard run that looked very nice, but that was in garbage time against the Ravens backup, so that context should at least be mentioned when we're talking about this. But it was good to see. The guy only saw 25% of the snaps. He was on a snap count, right? He's probably going to see and definitely going to see more usage moving forward. On just 25% of the snaps, he led the backfield with 48% of the carries, and he look good in that game. The dude literally touched the ball 13 times on 19 total snaps in week 2. Obviously, that high of usage probably is not going to continue, but he's going to see more usage moving forward in terms of snaps, which should lead to pretty consistent days of 12 plus touches. But here's my concern with it. First off, we could just start by saying this is the Browns offense. We don't expect him to be good this year, especially when Joe Flacco, and I want to say when because I don't think it's an if, I think it's a when Joe Flacco gets benched this season for either Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. Like, the offense probably is only going to get worse at that point. Maybe there's some untapped upside with these rookies, although they weren't early round picks, which normally doesn't pan out in the NFL. So that's the first thing. Browns offense, we don't expect them to be good. They're 7-point underdogs this week against the Packers. That's tough for an early down grinder like Quinshon Judkins. Not a good game script. And he's also in a backfield where 2 other running backs are still involved, and these guys are going to remain involved, right? Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford are better pass catchers than Quinshon Judkins. That was the exact same thing in college when Trevion Henderson was out there. That's exactly what we saw this past week in terms of routes run. Jerome Ford led the team with 47%. Sampson was second with 20%. Judkins only 16% of the routes. So what are you getting here? Well, maybe you're getting with a former Cleveland Brown like Nick Chubb, who obviously was one of the best pure runners of the past 10 to 15 to 20 years. Maybe you're getting just a early down grinder who's going to see 12 to 14, 15 carries in games, except this offense is much worse, and I'm not going to go out and just say automatically that Quinshon Judkins is as good as prime Nick Chubb. Now, the positive signs for Quinshon Judkins is a couple of things here, right? I mean, you look at college, he had 3 straight seasons of at least 1,000 rushing yards, the only rookie running back to say he did that. He had over 17 or 16 or more touchdowns in every single season, right? He even was able to produce 1,000 yards, over 1,000 yards last year at Ohio State with Trevion Henderson being there, and he still looked very good. He then goes to the NFL Combine and surprises some people, running a 4.48 40 time at his size. That's 92nd percentile speed according to Player Profiler, 94th percentile burst. That's nerd talk for saying he was a top 10% athlete to attend the Combine since they've been tracking the workout metrics. Now, that's top 10% at his position, the running back position. So I'm just concerned here. Like, there's a lot of hype because he averaged 6 yards per carry and he saw a lot of usage, and maybe he's been on your bench for the first week and you were concerned that he was going to get suspended. And by the way, another concern we should bring up is that he could still get suspended. Like, there's rumors that it could be 2 to 4 games. The NFL can still suspend players. They have suspended players in the past. There's somewhat of a precedent set. Even if you don't have your trial gets dropped, if their investigation says that they want to suspend you, they can. We don't have updates on that right now. It's been kind of hush-hush. Maybe they don't suspend him, but here's the outlook for Quinshon Judkins. Bad offense gets even worse once Joe Flacco is out there. 2 running backs potentially still involved, and maybe a suspension looming. I'm personally trying to sell high if I can. Now, the key there is if I can. Judkins for Worthy, give me Worthy. Judkins for T. Higgins, yeah, I want T. Higgins. Judkins for Ramondre Stevenson, now I start to pause a little bit. Joe Mixon, now I start to pause. Calvin Austin, I start to pause, right? You want the right deal here, but some deals are getting done right now. Judkins for Emeka Egbuka, we'll see how Ibuka's injury is right now heading into week 3, hasn't practiced as of this recording. I'll take Egbuka, I'll take Calvin Ridley, I'll take Jameson Williams. If you can sell high, that's the point of this video, sell high so you can get a better valuable player the rest of the season, go ahead and do that with Judkins. And go ahead and do that with Travis Etienne, another running back, and this running back has had the dream start to the season so far. I mean, look how good it's been for Travis Etienne. 18.6 fantasy points, 156 total yards. Oh, was it a fluke? Well, in week 2, 17 fantasy points, a touchdown, 89 total yards in a more difficult matchup. He goes out there right now, and he's looking like easily a top 10 running back that you were probably able to get in round 8 of your fantasy drafts, maybe even later. But when you start to zoom in, although he's looked like a league winner through 2 weeks, this is still like a split backfield, and it's not just one other backfield, it's a committee of 3 guys being involved. Check this out. In week 1, Tank Bigsby was involved with LaQuint Allen, and in week 2, 64% of the snaps for Etienne. He's still the lead back, still seeing the majority of the rush attempts at 56%, but this was Tank Bigsby. He ended up seeing in his 1 game week 1, 19% of the snaps. Through 2 games, Bishal Tutin saw 16%, and that rose to 33% last week, and LaQuint Allen is still playing 15% of the snaps each week on passing downs. Now, maybe that goes away, but maybe it doesn't. And out of all those guys I just mentioned, I would be pretty concerned if I was a Travis Etienne fantasy manager, Travis Etienne himself in real life, about Bishal Tutin, the rookie 4th round pick behind him. He had a lot of hype this offseason, and honestly, his first real action that he was able to get in week 2, this dude looked really good. I mean, he turned 10 touches into, let's just show you, right? He turns 10 touches into 74 yards. He takes 8 of them on the ground for 42 yards and a touchdown. He then in the air, well, he had the touchdown in the air, 2 catches, 32 yards and a touchdown. So 10 touches for 74 yards and a touchdown. Saw 34% of the opportunities. So over 30% of the snaps in this game. And this was just his first game usage. Again, he has the same coach, Liam Combs, who coached Bucky Irving last year. And it took until about week 3 or 4 for Bucky Irving to start to get a lot more usage. That's where we're at right now. Maybe Tutin starts to get more involved since he just showed last week. He's pretty damn good. And oh yeah, by the way, to start the season, Etienne, it's been great that he's put up these huge numbers, right? It's been awesome for you in your fantasy lineups, but he faced the Panthers, probably the worst run defense now for 2 straight seasons, and the Bengals, probably a bottom 3 overall defense now since the beginning of last year. What's next on the schedule? Texans, really good run defense. 49ers, really good good defensive line right now. Chiefs, amazing run defense. Seahawks, arguably the best defense in the league right now. I can keep going here. Then he faces the Rams. They look awesome. Then he faces the Texans again. They look awesome, right? In terms of 6 out of his next 7 matchups are probably against top 10 defensive lines. That's pretty scary for an offense that doesn't have a good offensive line. If you can, again, sell high, don't sell low on Travis Etienne. Literally right now is your last chance. I've already traded away Etienne in one league, and look at the trades happening right now. These are over the last hour or two. Devontae Adams, oh yeah, give me Adams. Devonta Smith, I'll take Devonta Smith. Chase Brown, easily, even with Joe Burrow hurt. Emeka Ibuka, yes. Not Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Chuba Hubbard, sure. T. Higgins, yes. Ricky Pearsall, I'll hold off. Tedero McMillan, yes. Breece Hall, yes. Calvin Ridley, yes. I mean, at this point, it might seem crazy to take some of those guys. I'm telling you right now, he just had his 2 easiest matchups of the season. The next 6 to 7 weeks are brutal matchups, and Baishal Tutin is lurking and seeing more usage quickly. All right, let's move over for now from the running backs, and let's go back to the wide receiver, who's maybe a little bit under the radar, but I think you might be able to get a decent offering back for him. And that is Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts, whose offense has looked awesome through 2 weeks. Daniel Jones has looked awesome. They're the #1 efficiency offense right now. Who knows if that keeps up, but it looked real in a very difficult matchup against the Broncos in week 2. Now let's talk about Downs. This dude was a breakout candidate last year and coming into this year because when he was playing with Joe Flacco, he looked really good. In 7 weeks with Flacco, he averaged 15 fantasy points per game and nearly 10 targets per game. But so far in 2025, the entire Colts offense has looked awesome. Jonathan Taylor balling out. Nice weeks for Michael Pittman. Tyler Warren already looks like a top 5 tight end in the NFL, but Downs, not much. In week 1 with his new quarterback, Daniel Jones, he caught just 2 balls for 12 yards, but he was coming into this game with an injury. He had an injury in training camp as well. Maybe that was a part of it because in week 2, we saw more usage, which was good to see. I think this was very much matchup based, but let's break it down. 6 catches, 51 yards on a team high 8 targets. That was good to see for Josh Downs, but I mentioned this was matchup based. They were facing the Denver Broncos, who have Patrick Surtain and good outside cornerbacks. I think they said to themselves, let's win in the middle of the field as much as we possibly can. Let's target 8 times in this game Josh Downs. Let's throw the ball 7 times in this game to Tyler Warren in the middle of the field, right? So 4 catches, 79 yards for Warren, it worked out. 6 catches, 51 yards for Josh Downs, it worked out. Again, I think this was very matchup based. I think week 1 is what you're normally going to see from this offense most weeks, when they're not facing probably the best cornerback in the NFL in Patrick Surtain. Now let's look at it right now. In terms of everything that we're seeing currently as it stands, Michael Pittman is leading this team as the wide receiver 1 in terms of usage, in terms of routes, in terms of where he's being deployed, in terms of first read targets. That kind of bears out through 2 weeks according to the Fantasy Life data right now. Michael Pittman, 86% of the routes. Alec Pierce, 86% of the routes. Josh Downs operating mostly as a slot receiver, playing just 56% of the routes. And that's just number 3 amongst the wide receivers. Obviously, Tyler Warren is there playing as an every down player. So technically, in terms of usage right now, Downs ranks 4th on the team in routes and snaps, which isn't all that great. Now, that could change, but right now, it's not that great. Now, I will hold out some hope for what Ryan Heath says right here. After only seeing 3 targets in week 1 on just 48.5% of the routes, he led the team in week 2 with 8 targets, like we just mentioned. And he says, maybe the Colts just changed their packages in week 1 because of the Downs preseason injury. Okay, maybe they did that, but he still wasn't playing a ton in terms of 2 wide receiver sets. So I'm a little bit concerned there. At the end of the day, when you break down this offense, how it looks right now is that Tyler Warren looks like the #1 priority in the passing attack, right? For Daniel Jones, who historically loves throwing to the slot type players, and that's where Warren's playing. Michael Pittman is very much healthy and very much looks like 2023 Michael Pittman when he was healthy, a talented top 20 wide receiver in the league. And then the offense continues to run through Jonathan Taylor. If I had to rank it right now, I would say it's going to be Jonathan Taylor 1, Tyler Warren 2 in terms of the offensive priorities, and then some combination of Downs and Pittman as like 3, 4. Like that doesn't feel great in terms of putting that guy in your lineup every week as like a wide receiver 2 or 3, especially if this offense comes back down to earth. I mean, check this out. Tyler Warren, according to Ryan Heath, Tyler Warren's addition to the receiving corps, 79 yards on 7 targets, and his emergence as an instant target earner caps the upside of Josh Downs and everybody else. It definitely caps the upside of Josh Downs because they operate in the same areas of the field. Nobody can tell me right now, and none of you believe this, that Tyler Warren, he is less valuable than Josh Downs in fantasy. That sounds crazy. He's way more valuable in fantasy and real life, and he's operating in the same parts of the field as Josh Downs. He's going to earn the targets over Downs there more times than not. So if you could sell Josh, I mean, this one's crazy. Josh Downs for Ladd McConkey. Obviously, somebody's panicking right there after 1 week, but if you could sell Josh Downs right now, I probably would. Brandon Ayuk coming back off of IR right now, and like 2 or 3 weeks, I'd probably ship him for him. Cam Scadaboo's pretty close at this point, right? If you can get a proper deal done for Josh Downs in a fantasy league, those are the types of deals I would be looking for. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, if you need running back help, that feels good. Here's some options right now that I feel really good about. I would definitely trade for Jordan Addison. I would even trade for Matthew Golden. Oh, but Matthew Golden's looked terrible. No, he hasn't. Have you watched the film? He's separating. He's getting open. He's just opening up stuff on the underneath for Tucker Kraft, and the Packers haven't thrown it a lot yet. It's been 2 weeks for a rookie. He's still fine. I'd be trading for Matthew Golden actually as a buy low, and trading Downs for him is one thing that I would definitely do. All right, now let's go back to the running back position, but before we do, I don't know if you know this, but football is back, and so is your chance to cash in like never before. With my partners, DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, and your game day instincts can help you score real money fast. So now here's what you need to know. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats from breakout rookies to elite quarterbacks and unlock the upside every snap brings. And the better your calls, the bigger the payouts. Look, there's no gimmicks, no convoluted rules. It's just you, your reads, and your shot at big returns. Now here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. So all that's left for you to do is download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code SAL, make the right call, and ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. Okay, back to the running back position we go, and I want to talk about James Conner, who, by all accounts, if your friends just look at game logs and your league mates, it looks like he's been a great fantasy running back. Top 20 performance in week 1 with 14 fantasy points, top 25 in week 2. He's been a top 20 running back right now, 12.5 fantasy points in week 2. So everything looks real good here, but here's the thing. Without the touchdowns, he scored a touchdown in each week. He's giving you terrible outings. 44 total yards, 52 total yards. He has actually looked on film very terrible in probably his 2 easiest matchups of the season. I mean, check this out. He's averaging 3.2 yards per carry, 47th in the NFL, 3.4 yards per touch when you factor in his receiving work, just 96 total yards in 2 games, again, through 2 of literally the easiest matchups of the year. Those matchups are the Saints, where they were able to play with the league and then lead, and then the Panthers last week, who again probably have the worst run defense since the beginning of last year. And the bigger concern for James Conner, outside of his age and his lack of efficiency right now, is he's losing significant work in a lot of different ways to Trey Benson right now, and that's a concern. In week 1, Trey Benson goes out there, shows his explosiveness, has a 50-yard run, ends up with 8 carries for 69 yards. On less touches, he outproduces James Conner by 30 rushing yards. In week 2, Conner remains inefficient, averaging just 3 yards per carry. Benson doesn't get a lot of touches, but he's averaging 4.7 yards per carry. But more importantly, Benson catches 4 balls on 6 targets for 30 receiving yards compared to Conner just 1 catch for 18 yards. Trey Benson in this game, if we pull it up right here, he ends up going out there and running 55% of the routes in week 2 compared to 41% for James Conner. He was playing on the long down and distance. He basically out of nowhere became the 3rd down back for this team. He was never getting that usage last year. Week 1, we saw it a little bit. Week 2, we saw it completely, and that's taking away upside from James Conner if he's not going to get passing down work. We referenced this earlier in the week in the trades video, saying that Trey Benson is somebody that you could try and buy low on right now. Trey Benson, according to Ryan Heath, a career high 6 targets, a 24% target share in week 2. That's how many he had all of last year. You can't tell me that this is just some sort of random thing. In week 1, Trey Benson saw the 2nd best usage of his career. In week 2, he just saw the best usage of his career. His usage is trending up. They're no longer using Amari DiMercato as the RB3 in this backfield. They're using 2 running backs. Benson is the younger guy, more burst, and now seeing more usage. So far this season, and it is a very limited sample, but Trey Benson leads the entire NFL, averaging 7.4 yards per touch. Again, it's a limited sample. He only has 11 carries, but he does have like 5 catches, so 16 touches. It's limited, but that's something. 7.4 yards per touch, 5.6 yards per carry, number 1 in yards created per touch. Obviously, when you have a 50-yard run, it's going to skew things a lot, so that's part of this, right? But if you can go out there based off these 2 touchdowns that are basically keeping James Conner as a top 20 running back, without these goal line scores, he's not even useful right now. T. Higgins definitely making that trade. Keenan Allen, I'm making that trade. Garrett Wilson, I'm making that trade. Jacoby Myers, I'm making that trade. Trevion Henderson, I'm making that trade. AJ Brown, I'm making that trade. Amarion Hampton, I'm making that trade. I'm making all these trades right now. James Conner, if we had a redraft today, to me, based on the usage we're seeing out of Trey Benson, is like a late 6th, probably more likely a 7th round fantasy pick. I'd rather have those other guys instead. Now, a quick one that we could talk about is if you have Kayshon Boutte in your league, like he's not a hot commodity, but he was a hot commodity off waivers in week 1, and then he scored in week 2. Like, this is a guy who, look, I get it. He has 3 top 20 fantasy finishes over his last 5 games. And over that stretch, he's averaging like 70 yards per game. So I completely get why some people think that maybe this is the breakout for Kayshon Boutte. But last week completely exposed why he's not some alpha, right? Last week, he has 74% of the routes, leads the team, only 5% of the targets. This was just one one target in that game, right? It was like tied for 5th or 6th on the team. It just happened to go for a 16-yard touchdown. But Stefon Diggs got more involved. 23% of the targets. Diggs is a 30-plus-year-old wide receiver coming off of a torn ACL who was on a snap count in week 1. We're hoping that the snaps slowly go up, but in week 2, he was earning more targets. He was looking better, and Drake May was looking to Stefon Diggs, not Kayshon Boutte or honestly anybody else. Again, I really don't think you're going to get much for Kayshon Boutte in deals, but right now, Isaiah Pacheco, give me him. Keenan Allen, give me him. Mahomes, give me him. Quinshon Judkins, I know I said I want to trade him away. I'll take him over Kayshon Boutte right now. Definitely Matthew Golden. Now, that's one that could be interesting. People think Matthew Golden stinks. He's had 2 targets in the last 2 weeks and basically like, what, 1 reception or like 1 rush attempt on the year. He's done absolutely nothing. If you show them Kayshon Boutte's game log of 100 receiving yard game in week 1, a touchdown in week 2, they might actually trade you Matthew Golden because they might not know what's going on in fantasy for Kayshon Boutte. The rest of the season, Kayshon Boutte, probably not even a top 200 player in fantasy football. Maybe he is. Maybe he's like 160. Matthew Golden right now is still easily a top 100 player. Now, this next one might ruffle some feathers, but here's the deal with Emeka Egbuka. I'm considering him a hold right now. And again, I'm recording this before Friday practice reports come out. He hasn't practiced on Wednesday and Thursday. If he was to miss week 3, well, obviously he's not going to score any points in week 3, so it might be harder to sell high on him. But assuming it's not a major injury, I'm going to recommend holding or selling high if you can on Egbuka, and here's why. Obviously, he's been great so far. Top 5 finish in his first ever game in week 1, 4 catches on 6 targets, had 2 touchdowns. Then in week 2, he has 4 catches again, just 29 yards, but he ends up having a touchdown in that game. He had 3 touchdowns in his first 2 games, actually 3 touchdowns in his first 2 quarters. So he's put up 24 fantasy points and 13 fantasy points as a rookie in his first 2 games ever. Obviously, that is fantastic. And this was a guy who coming into the season had so much hype on him for good reason. He was playing great. Baker Mayfield loved him. Chris Godwin injury, Jalen McMillan injury. Everything was lining up for the first round pick out of Ohio State. And so far, he's delivered, but people are now viewing him. Like, I ran a poll the other day on Twitter, and I was like, would you rather have rest of season like Emeka Egbuka or AJ Brown? And based on the first 2 weeks of AJ Brown struggling, it was like 80-something% Emeka Egbuka. Obviously, that's recency bias. There's no way you're taking Emeka Egbuka over AJ Brown. Emeka Egbuka isn't even the wide receiver 1 on his team. So far through the first 2 weeks, Mike Evans has been the clear wide receiver 1 for Baker Mayfield. He's earned 30% of the targets. Egbuka has earned 19.5%. We'll round up to 20% here, right? Now he's actually banged up as well. Emeka Egbuka has basically seen 20% of his targets, 16% of the targets for Sterling Shepard, the wide receiver 3 right now. Sterling Shepard and Egbuka have seen the same usage right now in terms of targets. Now, obviously, Egbuka is better. He's been able to do more of those targets. He's found the end zone. But the whole point is he's not seeing crazy volume, 6 targets a week. He just happens to get in the end zone 3 times in 2 games. And even in week 2, like, the things are going to turn around for Mike Evans. Evans in week 2, a tough matchup against Derek Stingley. He covered Evans on 29 of 39 routes. He only allowed 3 catches for 36 yards. One of the best cornerbacks, young cornerbacks in the game, is Derek Stingley, right? So here's the situation that you're looking at. You're looking at a spot where Mike Evans is still the number 1 receiver here. Egbuka has been great, relying on touchdowns, a little bit banged up. Godwin's going to come back soon as well. We'll see where he's at. They're saying that he maybe comes back by like week 5. Who knows? But the whole point on Egbuka, he's been great. You took him in round 5, 6, 7, maybe even later in your drafts, and he's been producing for you. You can keep him in your lineups. That's fine. But why not try and sell high on a guy who for the next 10 weeks will actually be valuable, not just the next 2 or 3 until Godwin comes back? Emeka Egbuka for Rashee Rice? Go get Rashee Rice. People, go get Rashee Rice. In week 5 or when he comes back in week 7, Rashee Rice is going to be a top 10 fantasy receiver in the rankings. Egbuka is still going to be like wide receiver 26 or 27 if Godwin's back by then. Egbuka for Zay Flowers? I want Zay Flowers. Egbuka for Terry McLaurin? That one's a little bit closer. I lean McLaurin. For Brian Thomas? Yes, I want Brian Thomas. For Metcalf, that one's a little bit closer. AJ Brown is down here. You can't see him. There's a damn ad. AJ Brown, right? If it's the right deal, go trade Emeka Egbuka. He's the wide receiver 2 on his team. He's been playing great so far, but he's still the wide receiver 2 on his team. Now he's dealing with an injury, and Godwin is coming back apparently soon. He's been practicing as of this week. So there are 7 players that you should try and sell high on or hold if you don't get the right deal right now. Now, if you want to see the players that you can try and trade them for, well, in these 2 videos, the running backs you should trade for, they're about to explode in fantasy, and the wide receivers about to explode in fantasy, go trade for them. These will help you to decide exactly the players you should be targeting in deals right now.